The Blackthorn estate stood like a sentinel of the past, perched on the jagged cliffs of Ravenswood. Its spires and gables pierced the foggy sky, and its Gothic silhouette cast eerie shadows over the restless ocean below. For over 2 centuries, the family's history had been shrouded in mystery, not for their wealth or power, but for their curse, a haunting legacy of disappearances that had claimed a member of every generation. No one could explain the vanishing acts. Theories ranged from superstitions about vengeful spirits to whispers of dark family secrets. The disappearances, though rare, were always sudden and inexplicable. The latest victim of this curse was Jonathan Blackthorn, the family patriarch, and now his daughter Amelia had returned to uncover the truth. Amelia stood at the wrought iron gates of Ravenswood, gripping a single piece of paper. The inked words on it chilled her to the bone. Amelia, they are coming for me. The answer lies beneath the cliffs. Do not let it consume you as it did the others. Her father had written it days before his disappearance. A man of logic and meticulous record-keeping, Jonathan had spent his life studying the Blackthorn family history. Now he was gone, leaving behind more questions than answers. Pushing open the gate, Amelia stepped onto the estate grounds. Weeds had overrun the once pristine gardens, and the air smelled of salt and decay. The mansion loomed ahead, its windows like blackened eyes watching her every move. Memories of shadows. Amelia hadn't been back to Ravenswood in over a decade, not since her mother disappeared when she was a teenager. The memories of that day were vivid. Her mother had walked into the garden at dusk and never returned. No footprints, no signs of a struggle, just silence and a lingering unease. Steeling herself, Amelia unlocked the heavy wooden doors of the mansion. The interior was cold and lifeless, a stark contrast to the warmth she remembered from her childhood. Dust blanketed the furniture, and cobwebs hung in the corners of the grand foyer. The place felt frozen in time, as if it had been waiting for her return. She made her way to her father's library, the room where he had spent countless hours poring over ancient tomes and journals. It was just as she remembered. An overwhelming maze of bookshelves and papers, with maps and sketches pinned haphazardly to the walls. Her gaze landed on the family tree. It was massive, spanning generations of Blackthorn names. Red X's marked those who had vanished, and there were far too many of them. The earliest disappearance dated back to 1824, Margaret Blackthorn, who had supposedly seen shadows in her mirror before vanishing. More X's followed, each tied to eerie circumstances: a figure walking into the forest, a sudden scream in the night, a door left swinging open. Amelia felt her stomach tighten as her eyes traveled down the tree to her father's name, now crossed out. Below his name, hers remained unmarked, but she knew it was only a matter of time if she didn't uncover the truth. Clues in the shadows. On her father's desk lay his final journal, its leather cover worn from years of use. She opened it, flipping through pages of frantic handwriting. His notes detailed his obsession with the family curse, referencing ancient symbols, a hidden door, and something he called the vault. One passage stood out. The cave system beneath the cliffs predates the mansion itself. The villagers whispered of a door that should never be opened, a place where screams are swallowed by the sea. If this door is tied to the curse, then it must remain sealed. Another entry, written days before his disappearance, was more ominous. I heard the whispers again. They grow louder. It is not just the curse, but something ancient, something waiting. If I fail, Amelia must continue. The key is blood. Amelia's breath caught as the air in the room seemed to shift. She felt a sudden chill, as though someone, or something, was watching her. Turning slowly, she scanned the room, but nothing was there. Just the oppressive silence of the old house. Resolute, she gathered the journal and a flashlight, determined to investigate the caves her father had written about. If the answers lay beneath the cliffs, she would find them. The descent. The cliffs loomed like jagged teeth against the darkening sky as Amelia made her way to the edge of the estate. The sound of crashing waves grew louder with each step, and the air was heavy with the smell of salt and seaweed. She searched the rocky terrain for the entrance her father had described and found it. Narrow stone steps carved into the cliffside, partially hidden by tangled vines. Her flashlight's beam revealed the slippery, treacherous path descending into the shadows. Her heart pounded as she made her way down. The steps creaked under her weight, and the wind howled around her, threatening to pull her into the sea. When she reached the bottom, she found herself standing before the mouth of a cavern. Strange symbols were etched into the rock, faintly glowing in the dim light. The air inside the cave was colder, thick with moisture and an unplaceable metallic tang. The flashlight illuminated the walls, revealing more of the glowing symbols. They seemed to shift and writhe when she looked directly at them, an effect that made her head spin. Deeper inside, she came to a massive stone door. It was covered in intricate carvings and the same glowing runes. At its base, an inscription read, "Only blood will open the door. Beware what lies beyond." Amelia's pulse quickened. Her father's warnings echoed in her mind, but curiosity and desperation drove her forward. She placed a trembling hand on the door, and as her skin made contact, the carvings began to glow brighter. A sudden pain shot through her palm. She gasped and pulled her hand back, but a drop of her blood had already fallen onto the stone. The runes flared with light, and the door began to tremble. The ground beneath her feet shook as a low, guttural sound rumbled from deep within the cavern. The whispers returned, louder now, overlapping in a chaotic cacophony. "Help us. Free us. Save us." Amelia stumbled back as the door slowly began to open, revealing a darkness so profound it seemed to swallow the light. She felt a pull, an invisible force beckoning her forward. But what lay beyond the door was something she could not have prepared for, a truth that would unravel the very foundation of her family's legacy. The stone door groaned as it slid open, revealing an abyss shrouded in unnatural darkness. Amelia stood frozen at the threshold, her flashlight barely penetrating the void beyond. The whispers surged again, louder and more insistent, their tones shifting between desperation and malice. "Amelia, come closer. Free us." Her heart raced, but the pull from beyond the door was undeniable. It wasn't just curiosity. It felt as if the cavern itself was calling her, drawing her deeper into its secrets. Clenching her fists, she stepped through the doorway, the cold air wrapping around her like icy tendrils. The Chamber of Shadows. The space beyond was massive, a domed chamber carved into the rock. Amelia's flashlight revealed towering columns etched with the same glowing symbols she'd seen on the door. At the center of the room was a circular stone platform surrounded by deep grooves, as if something had once flowed through them. Above the platform hung a series of iron chains, their rusted links stretching upward into the darkness. A faint hum emanated from the chains, resonating deep in her bones. As Amelia approached, the whispers returned, clearer now. "We are bound. Release us." The words sent chills down her spine. She scanned the room, searching for the source, but it seemed to come from everywhere at once. The journal's warnings echoed in her mind. The vault must remain sealed. Beware what lies beyond. But it was too late to turn back. The door behind her had silently closed, trapping her inside. She fought to keep her fear at bay and focused on the platform. Beneath it, carved into the floor, was a large symbol, a swirling spiral surrounded by intricate patterns. Her father's sketches had included this very design. She knelt to examine it more closely. The grooves appeared stained, as if something had once flowed through them. Then her eyes caught an inscription at the edge of the platform. "By the blood of the last, the chains will break, and the truth shall awaken." Amelia's pulse quickened. Her blood, her family's blood, was the key. The curse wasn't just about the disappearances, it was about keeping something contained. Visions of the past. As she ran her fingers over the inscription, the room grew colder. The whispers ceased, replaced by a deep, rhythmic sound, like a heartbeat. Her surroundings began to shift, the darkness peeling away to reveal visions of the past. She saw her ancestors standing in the same chamber, their faces etched with fear. They chanted in unison, their voices trembling as they sealed the door. Behind them, shadows writhed and twisted, clawing at the edges of the platform. The chains above rattled violently, as if struggling against an unseen force. The vision blurred and shifted, revealing a younger Jonathan Blackthorn. Her father stood where she now knelt, his hands bloodied as he traced the same symbols. His voice echoed in her ears. "We were wrong. It was never meant to be contained. It demands more. Only she can end this." Amelia's breath caught. Her father had known this moment would come. He hadn't been trying to solve the curse. He'd been trying to prepare her for it. The chains stir. The visions faded, leaving Amelia alone in the chamber once more. But something had changed. The chains above the platform began to stir, their rusted links rattling against one another. A low growl echoed through the room, vibrating through the very stone. The whispers returned, but now they were darker, their tone laced with anger. "You should not have come. You cannot stop it." Amelia stumbled back, her flashlight flickering wildly. She felt the pull again, stronger now, urging her toward the platform. Against her better judgment, she stepped onto it, the grooves beneath her feet glowing faintly. The moment she did, the chains above came alive, snapping and writhing like serpents. A deafening roar filled the chamber, and the ground trembled violently. Amelia's blood ran cold as a fissure opened in the center of the platform, revealing a swirling void of darkness. From the void, something began to emerge. The Guardian awakes. It was unlike anything Amelia had ever seen, a figure made of shadows, its form shifting and flickering like smoke. Its eyes burned with an otherworldly light, and its presence filled the chamber with an oppressive weight. "You are the last," it said, its voice a guttural rumble that seemed to come from within her mind. "The bloodline that imprisoned me. Now, you will pay the price." Amelia tried to move, but her body refused to obey. The figure stepped closer, its shadowy tendrils reaching toward her. She could feel its power, ancient and malevolent, coursing through the air. "Why us?" she managed to whisper, her voice trembling. "Your ancestors sought to control what they did not understand," the figure replied. "They bound me here, using their blood as the lock, but blood weakens over time, and now their line is at its end." The chains above rattled violently, their glowing runes flickering as if struggling to maintain their hold. Amelia realized the truth. Her family had been the wardens of this being, and the disappearances weren't random. Each vanished family member had been drawn here, sacrificed to keep the entity contained. But now, it was breaking free. The final choice. Amelia's mind raced. If her blood was the key, then perhaps she could reseal the vault. But the thought of sacrificing herself sent a wave of terror through her. The figure loomed over her, its tendrils curling around her arms and legs. "Your choice," it hissed. "Break the chains, and I shall grant you power beyond imagining. Or resist, and face the same fate as those before you." Amelia's hands trembled as she looked at the glowing grooves beneath her feet. Her father's words echoed in her mind. If I fail, Amelia must finish this. Amelia's pulse thundered in her ears as the shadowy figure loomed over her, its tendrils tightening around her limbs. The cavern seemed alive, the walls pulsing with an unnatural energy. The inscriptions on the platform glowed brighter, casting eerie reflections across the room. The entity spoke again, its voice like the grinding of stones. "Decide, child of Blackthorn. Open the chains, and your suffering ends. Seal me again, and your bloodline will perish." Amelia's breath hitched. She was the last of her line. The curse had consumed her family for generations, taking everything from them. Her mother, her father, all gone. And now it demanded her. The weight of the past. Her gaze fell to the platform beneath her feet. The grooves carved into the stone were meant for blood. Her blood. Memories of her father's journal flooded her mind. His warnings, his desperation to prepare her for this moment, all made sense now. "We weren't just cursed," she whispered, her voice shaking. "We were the jailers." The figure tilted its head, its burning eyes narrowing. "You were the cowards who dared to contain me," it hissed. "Your family bound me here to save themselves from my wrath. They failed to understand that I cannot be chained forever." Amelia clenched her fists. "And yet, here you are," she said, forcing strength into her voice. The entity laughed, the sound reverberating through the cavern. "You think you can defy me? You are alone, Amelia. No one will come for you. They never do." The truth in its words stung. Her family's obsession with their own survival had isolated them, each generation too consumed by fear to warn the next. But Amelia refused to let the curse win. The ritual begins. Summoning her courage, Amelia pulled the small knife she'd taken from the library. It had belonged to her father, its blade engraved with the same symbols that adorned the chamber. She stepped to the edge of the platform and held the blade over her palm. The figure recoiled slightly, its tendrils twitching. "Foolish child," it growled. "You think blood will save you? It will only delay the inevitable." Amelia ignored the taunt and drew the blade across her palm. Pain flared, but she didn't falter. Blood dripped onto the grooves in the platform, and the effect was immediate. The runes flared to life, pulsing with a brilliant red light. The cavern trembled as the chains above the platform rattled violently. The entity roared, its form flickering as if struggling to maintain its shape. "You cannot hold me forever," it bellowed. "This prison will fail again, and when it does, your kind will beg for mercy." Amelia's knees buckled under the weight of the growing energy in the room, but she forced herself to stay upright. She pressed her bleeding palm to the center of the spiral, and a surge of power shot through her. A family secret. As the ritual intensified, Amelia was overcome with visions. She saw her ancestors performing the same ceremony, their faces etched with anguish and determination. She saw her mother, standing where she now stood, tears streaming down her face as she whispered a prayer. And then she saw her father, alone in the chamber, his hands pressed against the platform as he cried out, "Forgive me, Amelia. This was never your burden." Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her family hadn't just been victims of the curse. They had chosen to sacrifice themselves to keep the entity contained. They hadn't disappeared. They had given their lives to maintain the prison. The visions faded, and Amelia was left staring into the glowing spiral. The entity's voice pierced through her thoughts. "You are strong, but not strong enough. You cannot end this alone." The final choice. The platform beneath her feet began to crack, fissures spreading outward as the cavern threatened to collapse. The chains above groaned, their glowing runes flickering as they strained against the entity's power. Amelia realized the truth. The ritual wasn't just about sealing the entity, it required a life, her life. Blood for blood, she whispered, her voice trembling. The entity's tendrils lashed out, but the glowing grooves repelled them. You would sacrifice yourself? It sneered. You could have freedom, power, everything you desire. Amelia shook her head, her resolve hardening. You took everything from my family. I won't let you take anything else. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more stories like this, hit that like button and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And let me know on which topic you would like to see stories next. And check out these other stories you might enjoy. See you in the next one. Till then, take care and goodbye.